Yeah, I'm very honored that word got out that I was preaching and you're still here. That just makes my day. Well, great worship time we've had this morning. Thank you for all of you who've led us and everybody who's participated. It really lifted me up, and I appreciate you doing that so much. I want to read a couple. By the way, I'm not showing slides today. So if you have a phone or whatever you use to search your Bible, feel free to pull it out. And we're going through the book of Numbers this morning. I'll tell you why in a little bit. Here's a couple of fables from Aesop that I think really kind of set the road for us for what we're doing this morning. An old man, bent double with age and toil, was gathering sticks in a forest. At last, he grew so tired and hopeless that he threw down the bundle of sticks and he cried out, "I cannot bear this life any longer. Death, come and take me." As he spoke, Death appeared and said to him, "What do you want, old man?" "I heard you call me." "Please, sir," replied the old man, "would you kindly help me lift this load of sticks on my shoulder?" Not what he called for him for, was it? A widow who was fond of cleaning had two little maidens to wait on her. She was in the habit of waking them early in the morning at cockcrow. The maidens, aggravated by such excessive labor, resolved to kill the rooster. And roused their mistress up so early. And when they had done this, they found that they had only prepared themselves for greater troubles. For their mistress, no longer hearing the hour from the cockcrow, woke them up to work in the middle of the night. Now, I think you probably got the gist of both of those fables, the moral, but the moral is be careful what you wish for, lest you regret getting it. That's why I'm going to the book of Numbers today. You know, there's a reason that so many lottery members get into depression, who get into being broke, just lose everything they had. Some who've even committed suicide. And you think, wow, I mean, you win the lottery and that's what happens. Sometimes we have to be careful what we wish for, lest we regret getting it. One other minister, when he was writing about this, used these words: success can be defined as getting what you want, but happiness as wanting what you get. Amazing statement. Success, I made it. I got what I wanted. That's getting what you want. But happiness is wanting what you get. And sometimes we can cry out for things that we really think we've got to have. We've got to have this. And yet when we get it, we realize, not all that I thought it would be. Besides, I spent so much money on it. I wish I hadn't now. Don't need this. Don't want this. And that's what took me to the big book of Numbers. Or really, the book of Numbers took me to that. The book of Numbers is an incredible book, and every one of them is. You know, it's amazing how many times you go through a book of the Bible and then you think how amazing that book is. I've been assigned certain books on different lectureships, and I feel this is the greatest book in the Bible. Every one of them is so great when you get the purpose of what is there. So I'm starting out in the book of Numbers. It's called Numbers because God numbered his people. About 605,000 of them who were 20 years and older, just 20 years and older males who had the ability to go to war. The rest of them, we don't know. Probably at least over double that, right? I mean, doubles it to 1.3 or 4 million. So when thinking about this book and what it really means and what it's trying to say, he numbers the people, and then he wants to tell them how to dwell when they're together. And so the tabernacle was to be put in the very center of everything. The holy place, the most holy place where God dwelt, that is in the very center of camp every time they go. And then you have the Levitical priests who live in a circle around the holy place, the tabernacle. And then from there, if I could use a plus sign, there's 3 tribes that go north, east, south, and west in a perfect square or plus sign. Judah is the farthest one on the east, and that's who led whenever they went somewhere. Does that give any particular reasons to you that it was Judah? So they're all camping together, and in the first 10 chapters, you read basically what all they were to do in taking care of the tabernacle and when they made their journey. But then in chapter 11, things get a little bit different. In chapter 11, we see where the problems really begin for the children of Israel as they're trying to make this journey. And they begin to ask for things that they think they want. But when they want them, they wish they didn't have it. So, looking at that, God brought them out of bondage, led them through the Red Sea, and even then, he's listened to their complaints, listened to their grumblings, and they even start worshiping a golden calf. Isn't that amazing? I mean, if God had just done all those plagues, I'm sitting here saying, if I'd seen all those plagues brought on the Egyptians, if I'd seen God part the waters, the Red Sea, and I walked around on dry ground and everybody else following me got flooded, if I'd seen all that, if I'd seen Moses go up on Mount Sinai and the clouds come and the fire come and the smoke comes and God comes down upon that scene, if I had seen all that, surely, I wouldn't have done some of the things that we see here. But they saw all that. And so, chapter 11, they begin this problem. There are 7 stories in chapter 11 through 21. And they're formed in a concentric circle. In other words, if I can say, I should have had this video. There is an A, the very first story, let's just label A. The 7th story, let's label A, because the 2 have basically the same problem going on. Same story. Then you have a B and a B, and then you have a C and a C. But then you have a D. The D is right in the middle. It's the 4th. And it is the story that really just changes everything, if you please. I guess all of them changed everything in a way, but this one really changed everything. So let's start in chapter 11. I just want to review the stories. I just want to share with you what they have in common, and then let's see if we can get some points out of this. So these records of grumbling and complaining, and I guess I came to this book because it's Thanksgiving, and I thought, wow, of all the Thanksgiving, how much grumbling will I do in the midst of my Thanksgiving? How much complaining can I do during that time? So in chapter 11, we start out with the people complaining in the hearing of the Lord about all their misfortunes. Why did we come out of Egypt? Oh, man, it's so tough. So tough here, Lord. And so God hears the complaining. He brings a fire down upon the people. Moses prays, he intercedes for them, and the fire goes out. The place is named Tamara, which means the place of burning. And then they started out from the area to go to closer to Edom. And there they, once again, in chapter 21, they say, "Oh, we need water. Oh, I wish I was back in Egypt. We had it so good in Egypt. We had meat, we had loins, we had all kinds of good food, and all we have out here is this sorry manna." And God brought a fiery serpent. And he brought this into their midst, and they all began to die. And Moses put up the fiery serpent emblem, and if they looked to it, they would be saved. They would not die. If they looked on it, they would be healed. So that's the two stories that start and finish these 7. Then in chapter 11, verse 4, you get a B story, if you please. And this time it's again complaints, though, but this time it's really against God and Moses. And again, it's this, what are we going to eat? We just have this sorry manna again, and Moses cries out to God to treat them kindly in the midst of all of this. And so God says, "Okay, here's what we'll do. You are having trouble caring for all these little people as if they're just children. So let's appoint some people around here that can take care of them." And then Moses just says, "God, if this is the way it's going to be, just kill me now. I can't handle these kids. Why did you put me out here to handle these kids?" So since they're crying out for meat, God sends quail. And the quail covered the ground about 3 feet high, everywhere. You can't walk without hitting quail. And so the people get it and they start eating. And they've eaten so much, it's making them sick. And God gets so sick of them that he kills many with a plague due to their gluttony. And the place where they were craving is called graves of lust. You've got to have more. Then you go to the second B story in chapter 20. Again, the people cry out for water. And this time God says, "Moses, bring water out of the rock. I want you to speak to the rock. I want you to bring water out of the rock." And Moses, in his frustration with all of these kids who don't know how to behave, was so angry, he started hitting the rock with his staff. And he said to the people, "Shall we bring water out for you from this rock? Shall we do it?" And because of his wording, because he's saying something that doesn't give God the glory, doesn't sanctify God, Moses is told the water does come out, but Moses is told, "You're not going to enter the Holy Land. You'll lead them to it, but you're not going to get to go in." So there's 2 more. And then you have the C lessons, rebellions. And this time it's against Moses and the appointed leaders. And basically, these people are saying, we're upset that Moses has married a Cushite woman. It's primarily his family. Miriam's doing the leading in this. We are really mad that Moses has married a Cushite woman. Now, Cush would have what we would think now would be from Ethiopia, primarily. And maybe they're mad because Moses didn't marry someone who was born a Jew. Or more people think that they're mad because the word Cush means black. More people think that they're mad because Moses married a black woman. I don't know which one of those are true. Maybe both. I do understand a little bit how they would have come with the idea that he wasn't a Jew. It makes a little more sense, but I don't know. Because the Bible makes it clear that this woman was black. And we don't like that, his family says. We don't like that a bit. So, Lord says to them, or they say to Moses, has the Lord only spoken to you, Moses? You're the only one that has it going for him? Are you the only one that's so good that God speaks only to you? What about us? We're just as good as you are. We're just as good as you are. You've gone too far, Moses. And because of that, Moses, in his meekness, cries out to God to not punish them again. And God says to the people, Moses and I have, if I can use paraphrase, we have something close. We have something that I don't have with anybody else. I speak to lots of people in visions and signs and other things, but Moses and I speak face to face. Moses and I don't use symbols. We don't speak in vagueness. We speak face to face, clear. And so, because Miriam had a great deal to do in leading this, being against her brother, she is struck down with leprosy. Moses intervenes once again. And God said, okay. But anyone who has leprosy at least has to be set aside 7 days away from the camp. So she was. Then she came back and they set out to travel. Be careful what you want. You may not be happy when you get it. Okay, now in the middle of all this, well, in chapter, I skipped one there. Chapter 16, 17, real quickly. Korah leads rebellion against Moses and Aaron, claiming again that we're as good leaders as they are. We would have been better off. We've been left in Egypt. Don't like what's going on here. We haven't made it to a land of milk and honey, like you talked about. So God's ready to destroy them again, and Moses pleads for them again. But Korah and his followers were separated from the rest of the people of Israel. And God said, if you won't want to go with them, I'd separate from them. So they separate from Korah and his family. And the earth opens up. They're all cast down into the earth with every possession they have. And the earth swallows up. And then the 250 others who thought that the Korah was right, that we're just as good as you are, they were consumed by fire. And so the next day, the whole congregation assembled against Moses and Aaron. And you'd think we'd learn our lesson somewhere. The next day, the whole children of Israel come together and they protest the fact that Moses is responsible for killing Korah. Moses separated that land like Moses could, right? And so, once again, Moses told Aaron to burn incense for the people, asked God to spare them. And when he did, only 14,700 died on that day. And the staff that Aaron used to do this started sprouting with buds and blossoms and almonds. And so it was saved to be a sign to all the rebels. If you rebel against me, remember this story. So it's in the middle of those that chapter 13 and 14 is found, where he sends out the 12 spies. And you remember that story probably more than any. Sends out the 12 spies for about a month, I think. They come back. 10 of them say, boy, it's a great land. It is, you said it, you were right, it is great. But those guys over there are big. They are big. And we can't handle them. 10 of them said that. Joshua and Caleb, on the other hand, said, if we've got the Lord with us, we can do whatever we want. If he's on our side, we can do this. But the whole crowd this time decided to go along with the 10. Instead then of entering into the land, God's going to wipe out the people. He wants us, he said, Moses, it's time. I'm just going to get rid of all of them. We'll start over with you. I'll keep my promise. I'll still have people in the promised land. It's not going to be soon. Let's just start over with you and your descendants. And Moses, in his humility, his grace, begged God not to demolish them. And God said, okay. But this is what I'm going to do. Not one man except you, Joshua and Caleb. They are the only two who will enter into that land out of all these millions of people. So they don't get to go into the land. They just go wander for another 38 years. Now, every story of this book, really, when we read them, you probably feel like I do. How can you be so dumb? How can you see all these great things of God and then say the things you're doing, do the things you're doing? What in the world? And then I think God wanted me to study this book because I thought about the grumbling and complaining that is so easy for me to do. Maybe it is for you. I hope not. But as soon as we doubt God, or we say we never doubt God like this, we never complain, we never grumble, we become very vulnerable to what Satan can do to us. We're not aware that I'd never do that. So maybe you're like me. Maybe there's been a time in your life when you said, I am tired of this food. This really was not worth the price. We ought to get better than this. I'd like to have some other things. Or, you know, where we're living is not really that great. We deserve better than that. We really deserve, as well as the Mitchells have. We deserve that. We're doing as good as they are. We're as good as they are. Why does God give them that blessing, didn't give them to us? Maybe you've been around a church or something sometimes when everyone just cries out against their leaders. I'm so grateful that I haven't heard that here at all. But I've been in a lot of places when the people just cry out against their leaders. And said, if I were doing that, if I were in that job, this is what I'd do. Maybe we're not supposed to be doing that. But we always can do better than they could. If I just had that position, I know exactly what I would do. And I'm just as good as they are. Sometimes we forget the things that God has done in our lives. And we wonder why God is not treating us better. We can really become the pros in finding the worst things out of the best situations. This is really good, but if I only, and sometimes God gives us what we crave, and so much of it that we find out we really didn't want that at all. We've gotten what we wanted. We're successful in doing that, but we're not happy with what we've got. We've been successful, but we're not happy. Warren Green says some things in his writings about this, that he thinks often that addicts are better prepared to understand this than we are if we're not addicts. People who are in Alcoholics Anonymous, he said, would be better to understand this than we do if we're not. He says there's an understanding that we really crave something, and when we get it, we didn't want it all. And we may not be part of Alcoholics Anonymous, but we all are part of Sinners Anonymous. Because in truth, we can all crave something that really won't satisfy us at all. I have to confess that I'm a sinner, and my real need is to be free from sin, and my life be all about the dwelling place in the center where my Almighty God is. My life is focused there. Now, I want to do one other thing in summing this up. While all this is going on, there is something else going on that the Israelites don't even have a clue is happening. In chapters 22 to 24, we learn of Balak, the king of Moab, who sees what the Israelites have done and wants to destroy them. So his best guess at how to do that is pay Balaam, a prophet, who prophesied for Israel. Where he came from, nobody knows. But the best thing to do is to give this money-hungry man enough money so he will go out and curse the people of Israel. Balaam thinks that's a good idea. And so there's a few things that go on. I can't go into all of it, but let's just say finally comes to the point that Balaam is ready to go curse the people. And he gets on what? The donkey. And they start out down toward the place that he's going to do the cursing. And all of a sudden, the donkey starts swerving, and just running off another direction. He whips him and gets him back in the right direction. Goes again, and the donkey starts running again away. And third time that happens, he's beating him with a stick. And the amazing thing happens. The donkey says, haven't I been a good donkey? Haven't I always took you everywhere you wanted to go? I've never been against you. Why are you beating me like this? And Moses was saying, was because you're not doing what I tell you to do right now. And about that time, he sees what the donkey sees. Now, first of all, the donkey just talking is enough. But he sees what the donkey sees. He sees the angel of God with a sword ready to slaughter Balaam. And so the angel lets him know what's going to happen, what was about to happen. And you think Balaam would know enough now to quit. But the angel says to him, not hoping that he'd go, but if you go, you're going to have to say whatever God puts in your mouth. Balaam said, okay. So Balaam said, I'm going to go. I think he's still wanting the money. He really wants the money. And so he goes to one place, and all that he says are blessings on the people of Israel. Balak is mad as he can be. We got to go somewhere else and try this. They go to another place. Balaam speaks, and everything's a blessing. Balak is still mad. We're giving you a lot of money. So he goes to a third place. And Balaam again has to lift up the people and praise them. By that time, Balak says, it's not going to happen. I've given you all this money. I want it back. And all this time that the people of Israel are down here complaining and grumbling, God is up there working, saving them from being wiped out. The grace of God is once again combining with his justice so that justice can be done and grace can win. Well, so the whole time that this is going on, God is working. We don't know it sometimes. Sometimes we wonder what God is doing. Don't you? I mean, I do. I've gone through some time lately that I've wondered what God is doing. I believe that's why I might be preaching on this book. We don't even know at times what God is doing to protect us and save us from the things we think we want. And if we got them, we wish we never had them. God's always going to keep his covenant promises. He promised the children of Israel, I will take you into the promised land. He did. But the ones who thought it would happen soon all missed out, except for two. He's going to fulfill his mission and purpose today. He is going to take us home with him one day. We're going to have victory. He'll protect us from evil. He's going to win. And we will reach the promised land if we can just keep our lives centered around Jesus. And like the serpent was lifted up, and anyone who looked upon it could be healed, Jesus Christ has been lifted up. And anyone who comes to him can be healed. Father, thank you for this book. The title of it just doesn't do it justice. Thank you for all the stories, so many of them that the writers of the New Testament said, You need to think back about these stories and use them to encourage their people to do what Jesus wants us to do. I pray, Father, that that's what's happened today. I pray our lives will be centered around Jesus Christ. In his name I pray. Amen. Anyone wants to talk with me about anything, I'll be right outside the door.